Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today's webinar will be about a very important topic that you will come across in the Fronius universe very often. We will talk about sector integration and how your customers can get the maximum out of their PV system. My name is Maximilian Schett and it is my honor to guide you through today's webinar. And for those of you who have already been in Fronius webinars, you know how the procedure works. You can ask questions anytime, and my colleague, and today this will be David Sandic, will be happy to ask them live in the chat. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask and just write them in the chat, and my colleague David will answer them as best as he can. After the webinar, we will do a short Q&A session, and we will share with you the most important questions, or maybe the questions that are of interest to all of you. So what are we going to do today? As I said, this webinar will be about sector integration. Sector integration is a bit of a complicated term, and I would like first of all to define sector integration, what it is, why we are actually talking about it, and why it is necessary for your customers. And obviously, if there are sectors to integrate, we will also show you what sectors we are talking about. And in the end, probably the most important question, what are the financial benefits of sector integration for your customers? So let me start by what is sector integration, by defining it. And as you all know, we live in certainly interesting times where we, and by me I mean whole humanity, face some global challenges. This is first of all some ecological challenges. So I think of combating climate change. And when I think about this, then I have in my mind the Paris Climate Treaty, or from a European perspective, also the 55% target of the European Commission. So to reduce emissions until 2030 by 55%. And not just ecological challenges, we also face political challenges. You see the war in Ukraine, and with it connected, that we see the dependency on fossil fuels and the wish to be independent of other countries when it comes to our energy supply. And as a consequence of the ecological challenges and the political challenges, we saw rising energy costs. And this is something that I think many or most of us experienced. And you see here on the right-hand side the development of the Austrian energy prices. And as you can see, it was more or less on the same level from 2005 until 2022. And since then, the prices have risen sharply, and like by a 7 times increase between 22 and 23. And those three things, ecological challenges, political challenges, and the rising energy costs, this is also what many customers of us worry about, and these are core reasons for installing PV systems. And many start by doing so. They're installing modules and they want to be independent. They want to do something good for the environment. They want to fight the rising energy costs. And they soon realize that just the modules is not very efficient. They can run their dishwasher, they can run their washing machine, but this doesn't really save a lot of costs. It doesn't really protect the environment, and it doesn't really make them independent. And this is where today's topic comes into play, sector integration. So by sector integration, we mean to include other consumption sectors, such as heat, for example, or mobility, with our PV system. So that your PV system is not only fueling your washing machine and your dishwasher, but also other consumption sectors. And if your customers are able to do this, then actually they can save a lot of money. They are almost independent of others, and they can really do something for the environment. And so sector integration is a very important topic for us. And I want to show you what kind of solutions Fronius offers to include other consumption sectors into your PV system. And I will do this by showing you an example. Imagine a family household, and this family household has a perfectly working PV system on the roof. You can see here the gray area is the PV yield, and it's very typical. Production starts at 8 in the morning, has its peak around noon, 1 or 2 o'clock, and it stops production in the evening when sun sets. And on a perfectly sunny day like this family household with around a 10 kilowatt peak system has a yield of almost 70 kilowatt hours, so quite a lot. And while we are really happy that this PV system works that well, and you see here the black area, this is the household consumption, also very typical, one peak in the morning, one peak at noon, and another peak in the evening. And we are really happy because this PV yield almost to 100% covers this household consumption. However, we also see that a lot of this PV yield cannot be used. There's a lot of energy that is produced, but this family can't use it. And you see here on the top right, you see the own consumption rate of 11%. And this own consumption rate, this is a very important term as regards with sector integration, because it tells you how much of the energy actually is used. So only 10% on this sunny day is used in the household consumption, and the other 90% is not used and is either feeded into the general grid, or in the worst case is not used at all. So what could we do? As I said, we want to include other consumption sectors so that we use more of the energy we are producing. And first of all, we are doing something we call Fronius load management. Load management means we are taking some big loads, and that can be easily turned on or turned off. We connect them to our inverter, and the inverter tells those devices, okay, at the moment there's surplus, there's energy left from our PV system, and turns those loads on. And if the surplus is gone, then again turns those loads off. And we could use this, for example, for a pool pump, as you can see here. So this pool pump we move this pool pump into the day. The pool pump is running from 11 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And you see again on the top right, our consumption rate is rising. Before it was 11%, and now it is 15%. Pool pump is a very typical example. We could also do the same with an air conditioning system. Again, the air conditioning system, is running if there is PV energy there, is connected to an inverter. The inverter tells the air conditioning system at 11 you can start running, and in the evening you can stop running. Again, we see our own consumption rate rising, and now we already have 30% of own consumption rate. So again, 30% of the gray area is now used and covered. And in the past or earlier, we also recommended doing this load management with an electrical vehicle. And as you can see, our customer comes home from work, plugs in his electric vehicle at 4 in the afternoon, and is charging it for 4 hours or 3 hours until 7 in the evening. You see our own consumption rate is rising and is now at stunningly 58%. Are we happy? Not really, not really. There's a reason why I said earlier we recommended to do EV charging like this. Now we don't recommend it anymore. You see, we use a lot of the gray area from 4 until 7 in the afternoon, but our electric vehicle is charging much more energy than this. And you see that we again are taking a lot of energy. Oh, wait, I will show you like this. We're taking a lot of energy from the public grid. So we are producing a lot of energy, but still we need electricity from the public grid to run our electric vehicle. And this we can do much more effective. And to do this, we can use something we call Fronius energy flow management. And in this case, there is a device called Fronius Watt Pilot. And Watt Pilot is an intelligent charging device for an electric vehicle. Roughly said, it charges if PV power is available, and it stops charging if PV power is not available. And this is perfectly in our case, so we can use the Watt Pilot, and the Watt Pilot is telling our electric vehicle to stop charging when the surplus is reached, and so we can exactly use the surplus, but not more than this, like before, and can save costs again. The own consumption rate stays the same, and obviously the violet area of charging got a little bit smaller. So from before of 30 kilowatt hours now to 20 kilowatt hours. However, if we need, either we don't need that much energy and 20 kilowatt hours is fine. If yes, then we could do something else that again raises our own consumption rate and is part of sector integration. We install a battery. The battery is again taking surplus from in the morning. Again, it is an intelligent charging device. It takes energy if surplus is available, and it stops if surplus is not available. And please note here this peak in the morning at around 9, you see that the battery stops charging. And again, it continues charging after this peak, so when again there is surplus available. And with this battery charge, we can then charge the car in the evening. We could do it like this. And as you can see, again, we are on a level of 30 kilowatt hours. This is around 150 kilometers, so usually more than enough to go to work and come back again the next day. We increased own consumption rate onto a level of almost 70%. So 70% of the produced energy is actually used by us, and only 30% is what we are feeding into the general grid. Are we now happy? Again, could be better, right? We have still 30%, still 1/3 of the energy our PV system, our perfectly well functioning PV system is producing. We are still not using it. And so I would like to show you one more device of Fronius energy flow management, and this device is called the Fronius Ohm Pilot. The Ohm Pilot is works similar to the Watt Pilot. It is again an intelligent system. It is taking the surplus, exactly the level of the surplus from your PV system, and not more than this. But it is not charging your car. It is heating up your water. And water heating again is an excellent energy storage. You could compare it to a battery. So we are running in energy when we have it. Water is heating up, and then when we need it, and this could be at night as well, we are taking the energy again from it, and we are using the hot water. And as I said, it's an intelligent system. It's also a continuous system, so it is just taking exactly the surplus and not more than it, and it heats up your water if PV power is available, and it stops again when PV power is not available anymore. And if we're using the Ohm Pilot, then our example could look like this. So you see all the area that is left is now covered by the Ohm Pilot. Ohm Pilot, this is a power of around 21 kilowatt hours, so enough to heat up around 300 liters of water. We have risen our own consumption rate to 100%, and now this would be the perfect case for a perfectly working PV system. Sunny day, a lot of production, and all of the energy is actually used. Please note that the size of those different areas can vary. Of course, there can be days where the electric vehicle is charged with more energy, and on the other hand, we don't need that much for water heating. Or on other days, we are not charging the battery, but we are, I don't know, giving in even more energy into our car. But as I said, in the best case, it works like this, and we have up to 100% own consumption rate. And all of this you can do with our Gen 24 Plus inverters. So the Gen 24 Plus inverters, they are hybrid inverters. They are working with batteries, and of course also with other devices such the mentioned Ohm Pilot or Watt Pilot. Please also note that for all of those systems, you need a Fronius smart meter. So this is the basic equipment, the Fronius smart meter and the Gen 24 Plus inverter. So up to now, you have seen what sector integration is, what sectors we can include in a PV system, and now we come to the last question, and this is probably the most interesting one for customers. What are the benefits? So how much money can people save if they are fully equipping their PV system with all of the devices I have just shown you? And to show you this, I did a calculation, and I used for this calculation the Fronius Solar Creator tool. Maybe some of you have already some experience with it. This is as the name says, a creating tool where you can run simulations of PV systems. It's from Fronius, and it's free. So you will find it on the internet and every one of you can use it. If you haven't had experience with it, I can only recommend to try it out. It's a really cool system. And I used this solar creator tool to run a calculation. How much money can people save? And I took the example from before. So again, imagine a family household with a yearly need of around 5,000 kilowatt hours. This family household is equipped with all the devices I've just mentioned. There's a battery, an electrical vehicle to charge. It runs water heating with an own pilot and also a heat pump for heating the house. We calculate with a plant performance of around 10 kilowatt peak and assume electricity costs of 40 cents per kilowatt hour and a feed-in tariff of 15 cents per kilowatt hour. This is more or less the price level at the moment in Austria, so more or less. And I put in those numbers, and as I said, I ran this simulation, and this was the result here. You see that this solar creator tool, it doesn't give you just numbers, but it's also visualizing the results. And this is what you see here. So as I said, we have a PV power system of almost 10 kilowatt peak. It gives us a yearly yield of over 12,000 kilowatt hours. In this case, I was assuming this house is in Wales, so at the site of the Fronius company, and it gives us a self-consumption and a self-sufficiency rate of almost 70%. What does this mean? This means that 70% of all the energy that this household needs is covered by their PV system. So please remember, again, it's mobility, it's heating up water, it's heating up the house, it's the battery. All of this stuff is covered, and by 70%. This leads to savings by own consumption of 2,400 euros a year and gains from the feed-in tariff of 600 euros a year. So overall, we are speaking of 3,000 euro this family can save by just every year by using their PV system. And if we're calculating with with total costs of the PV system of 30 to 40,000 euros, then this would give us an amortization period of 9 years, let's say around 10 years. On the right hand side, you see also very good visualization of the water supply. 70% of hot water need is covered. You can see from April until August, 100% of hot water is done by your PV system. In March, September, and October, more than 50% is done by your PV system, and only in the winter month, especially November, December, and January, you see that we need more or less all of the energy from the public grid for heating up water. Please also note that Wales is a very foggy destination in autumn and in winter. There can be places where also in winter you have a lot of sun, and this can be even more efficient. And what I also would like to share you, and what is also out of this simulation, is this graph here. You see the yellow bars are the energy production in kilowatt hours, typically bell-shaped. So in winter, only a little production, and in summer a lot. So you have this bell shape, and the blue bars are the energy consumption. Energy consumption, if there is included a heat pump, then it's typically U-shaped. So the other way around, in winter more, in summer less. It's obvious, I guess. The electric vehicle needs the amount of kilowatt hours in violet, and the on pilot, so for heating up your water, you see in the orange color. And you can see that from March until September, so half a year, the PV system is producing more energy than actually is needed. And only in the winter month, as we said before, we need energy from the public grid. So as I said, very interesting. I can only recommend to play around a little bit in this Fronius Solar Creator. So let me come to the conclusion of this webinar. So this webinar was about consumption rate, about sector integration. What is sector integration and why do we want to use it? As I said, our customers have three core reasons for installing PV systems. This is doing something good for the environment, reaching climate targets, being independent of whoever produce the energy by yourself, the need, and third, of course, reduce costs. What sectors can we include in the PV system? Big loads, charging the electric vehicle, also charging the battery, and doing water heating as well. And if this is done correctly, and if the PV system is fully equipped, what amount of savings are possible? In our calculation for a family household, these are around 3,000 euros of savings and feeding gains per year. And this leads to an amortization period of around 10 years. Of course, depends on the costs of your of the PV system. If you need any further information, some of you might know, always a good idea to visit our homepage. There you find a lot of other information. Also, you find access to other webinars and important topics. For troubleshooting, Solar SOS app. And if you thought this webinar was interesting and you might want to do some others, please feel free to join other webinars and trainings. Always a good idea is also to visit our YouTube channel. There you again find webinars from earlier periods, or and also small how-to videos. Perfect. Then, as promised in the beginning, we will do a short Q&A session after this webinar. David, can you hear me?
Hi, Max. Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, David. Are there any questions you would like to share with our audience?
For now, you explained, I think, all the topics in a very, very nice way. For now, there are no specific questions that I couldn't answer or that could be interest for the whole webinar. So I would give back to you, and then you can do the ending of the webinar, please.
Perfect. Thank you, David. Then nothing remains other than wishing you a nice day. Thanks for joining this webinar. As I said, you are always welcome for any webinar in the future. I would also be happy to welcome you here in Wales for a live training. And yeah, other than that, thanks for joining and see you next time. Bye-bye.